So my name is Laurence Brown, and I teach the French course, and I've been teaching here for 6 years. And prior to this, I taught for 22 years in secondary schools. And before that, I've been studying. I did my teaching degree in England, in Sheffield. And before that, I was in teaching in France. And I decided, because I like English, I decided to come to England and ended up staying. So it's a progression from GCSE. So it's quite a big jump from GCSE to A-level in terms of the difficulty of the level. GCSE, you tend for the speaking to learn everything off by heart. With the A-level, gradually you would be able to speak from the top of your head without having pre-learned all the paragraph. So it is similar to the GCSE. So we've got three areas in terms of the exam, so three components. So the first one is the listening, reading and translation. That counts for 50% of the A-level. Then we have the paper 2, which is the writing part of the exam, which consists of, at the end of year 2, to sit a 2-hour paper where you have to write an essay. The first essay is linked to year 1, where we study a film, and the second essay is related to a book that we study in year 2. And paper 3 is the speaking component. In terms of the topics that we do, so it's kind of similar to GCSE because we have 6 different topics that we cover over the year. So it's theme-based, but around the topics we do obviously reading, listening, speaking and translation. So we start with the topic of family. Obviously you will have done it at GCSE level, but we look more about the structure of the French family, but it's not just about France, it's about looking at Francophone countries where they speak French. Then we move on to the technology, so looking at internet, the danger of internet, cyberbullying. Then we move on to music. This is quite a good topic because that's something that you can talk about. So we look at French music, why is it popular, why isn't it popular in England. Then we looked at one of my favorite topics, which is the national heritage. So it's looking at tourism, the pros and cons of tourism. Why is tourism popular in France? And that's when you start doing some research. And we also look at food, because it's important in France. We look at gastronomy. Why is it a big part of the French culture? Then we move on to volunteering, and we looked at charities in France and how the French government do support people. On this topic, we also do some research that you have to do independently or in pairs, and then present it to the rest of the class. And then we finish with the topic of cinema. We look at French films, and also in this unit we study a film. So we'd be watching the film, and then from this we looked at the different themes and write some essays. And then when you get at the end of the year, you will have a mock exam just to assess where you are, but all through the year you will have some mini assessments as well. We do run some trips. Obviously, it has not been possible with COVID, but we're looking hopefully for next year to run a trip. We tend to go to Paris. Obviously, the trips, they would go for about 3 days, 4 days. So hopefully next year we'll have an opportunity. In the past, most of the students, they've carried on to university, and I would say most of them, they choose to do a language course. When you do a language course, you tend to pick up a second language and sometimes a third as well. So it's a 3-year course. Depending on the universities, in your second, but certainly in your 3rd year, you would do part of your course abroad. So you would do it in a French university, and that's the best way to learn. So you could choose to do 3 months or 6 months. Some students in the past, because they'd picked up another language in the 3rd year, they would do, for example, 6 months in France and 6 months in Spain if they've chosen to do Spanish. Some students do decide to have a gap year and just travel and try to pick up the language, but most of the students that I'm aware of, they went on to going to university, and from there, especially if you go to university, you are going to meet some other people and have some links in terms of jobs, and certainly if you are going abroad, that's going to be the best way to just have some ideas about what you could do in the future. Certainly a lot of the students, they tend to go into teaching, so it could be secondary teaching, but also I've had a couple of students who ended up going to primary school, because in primary school you do teach languages. So I've put something that's quite straightforward so that I can assess your level in terms of grammar and vocabulary. So I said every week, every other week, to write something about what you've done, obviously in French. And on the website, I've put some websites that you can have a look at to help you with your grammar. It is important to have sometimes where you are going to do a bit of grammar and not to spend 6-7 weeks without doing anything, because at the moment you're not doing any languages and you forget it quite quickly. So try to do a bit of grammar, looking at your tenses, because that's going to be a big focus when we come back in September, and then try to write as much details as you can about what you do every week, if you want, every other week. Okay, and then I've put on the website, I've put some links for you to have a look at news. I know news is boring, but it's important that you get the feel for it, and also that you listen to people speaking. It is off-putting because they speak very, very fast, but I'm not interested about you being able to understand everything, because it's impossible, but just to listen and just to try and pick up a few words here and there.